Canada's many provinces have a distinct color of their own, somehow attached intrinsically to the resources and people of Canada, yet maintaining their own essence. The province of Nova Scotia is one such unique example. Nova Scotia is a story in itself, a story of reliving history every day, not merely out of memory, but by literally looking at it, walking in it, and being even more fascinated with each view and detail. Located in Canada's southeast coast, with a humble population of approximately 913,462, it is still the most populous province in Atlantic Canada, but fourth least populous province in the country. One would think the 3,880 coastal islands it encompasses may make it sound like a physically vast land, but on the contrary, made up of mainland and Cape Breton Island, it has a geographical stretch of no more than 55,284 square kilometers, making it Canada's second smallest province after Prince Edward Island. We begin our journey in Halifax, which is the capital city of Nova Scotia. Halifax is an amalgamation of history and modernization, dwelling, nurturing, growing in harmony, along with paying due homage to its rich, inspiring memories. It is a city in which history is literally relived through sight. Always eclectic with an air of serenity and dynamism, Halifax deftly blends the past with the present to produce a skyline dotted with elegant 18th and 19th century architecture alongside ultra-modern towers of glass and steel. For all its tree-lined streets, international restaurants, galleries, libraries, and museums, Halifax's heart is in the right place, close to its roots. Samuel Henry Prince put it in concise words that meant a volume. Halifax is not a large city, but there are those who love it, who would choose to dwell therein before all cities beneath the skies. Halifax's other unique attribute is afforded by its own twin city, Dartmouth. Founded in 1750, Dartmouth has traveled the course of history with Halifax. Established as a town in 1873, it has since been incorporated like several neighboring towns into Halifax's municipalities, and the current center of development and trade. It is connected to the Halifax Peninsula through the Angus L. MacDonald Bridge and the A. Murray Mackay suspension bridges. By traversing the water distance through these bridges, both trade and tourism has increased along with a steady growth in population. As the team explored on, time quickly became an unaffordable luxury, as Halifax's many corners spoke their own alluring tale, and prompted more exploration. Among the many dedications to its early inhabitants is the site of Seaview Memorial Park.
The African Americans, when they were persecuted in southern United States, they came underground to escape the persecution, and they had a big colony all in this area, which is under the bridge. So we're at the Seaview Memorial Park. This is where the Africville was, and this was deeded in 1848 to 1969 when they were removed from here, and they were populated in different parts of the area close to Halifax. And this is where the first black settlement in Canada took place.
This is Citadel Hill. Though only walls and structure in its physical presence, Citadel Hill stands proud to this day, proud of its part in protecting Canadian shores. Located on the Halifax Peninsula, it towers at about 80 meters above sea level, the standpoint affording a commanding view of the entrance to Halifax Harbor, as well as nearby islands. Citadel Hill's strategic value was the primary reason that the British military chose to establish a presence on the eastern side of the peninsula, thereby successfully stemming the flow of the insurgents during the times of war. Canadian Forces Base Halifax is Canada's East Coast naval base and home port to the Atlantic Fleet. It is the largest military base in Canada in terms of the number of posted personnel. It is formed from a variety of military properties around strategic Halifax Harbour in Nova Scotia. The base presently provides construction engineering, harbour support, and emergency response services to Maritime Forces Atlantic. Tall Ships Parade. Ships have always been an object of fascination, much like planes. No matter how many times one sees them, there is always a fresh excitement about the prospect of a huge vessel, a well-built structure rummaging into the watery kingdom of the ocean. Imagine then, when there are so many more to look at the same time, same place. The Tall Ships Festival of Halifax celebrates just that fascination every year. Why particularly tall ships? Because without a doubt, these are the pioneer vessels according to their time, and open new doors to innovation in furthering sea travel. The fact that they are undoubtedly the most majestic of seafaring ships in the world, in any given time, exclusively handcrafted, is an added incentive. This year, the Tall Ships Festival and Parade was celebrated for 5 days, beginning July 16th to July 21st. In addition to other activities and the colorful, bustling crowds gathering at the waterfront, the ships remain the main attraction. Right from the moment they arrive in the harbor to the moment of their disbursement on the last day when the parade takes place. The festival and the parade draw people and sailing enthusiasts from all over the North Atlantic, considerably adding to the busy fares of the town. Tourists take the opportunity to indulge in the offerings of Halifax. This makeshift tour boat or bus, fittingly called the Harbor Hopper, was a popular attraction on the town's streets. Even when viewed standing in the water, the sheer height of the masts, with the other intricate details of craftsmanship, do not fail to grab attention, sometimes for hours on end. One can continue to marvel at how God has sparked the best of inspirations in man's mind, both fulfilling foretold miracles and the state of world travel as it is seen today. Tall ships have been very instrumental in moving forward human interests in many global fields. They were used for trade, exploration, transportation, and many a time used as instruments of war. There would be an entire course of the sea covered with tall ships, engaging the enemy. Their formidable sculpt with the engineering edge of the best minds, coupled with their spacious confines, made them perfect for such purposes. Like many elements of history that they hold dear and appreciate, Nova Scotia revisits the mysticism of these majestic boats, reliving history in those moments as it drifts past them in magnificence, and sails away, set to return another year. The expedition's trips were quite elated as the Tall Ships Festival came to a close, having seen a great gathering of beautiful ships and appreciating people. Not all trips were as exciting. Some were more thought-provoking in a more saddening way. There are places in this world where feet unintentionally tread ever lightly, so as not to cause disdain to any already tragic memory. The Fairview Cemetery speaks of one such memory that engulfed the lives of 1,513 people. These were the passengers of the infamous cruise ship RMS Titanic that met its end in the unforgiving frigid waters of the Atlantic on April 1912, having capsized after hitting a massive iceberg. This cemetery is home and memorial to the perished who died in Titanic's maiden voyage.
We are at the Fairview Lawn Cemetery in Halifax, which has the graves of people that were perished in the Titanic disaster. When in 1912 Titanic left in its maiden voyage, it had 2,200 passengers, and in the middle of Atlantic, when it hit an iceberg and it sank, only 700 people have survived. And Halifax being the closest landmark, and I should say not just a landmark, but on the mainland, which was connected to the rest of the North America, the bodies were brought here and buried here. There are over 300 graves that are located in the cemetery.
Though still and silent, in the notorious wake of a dark chapter, the Fairview Cemetery is a ray of light, yet another example of how humanity can rise above its fears, even in the worst of times. Where death spoke its tone, the celebration of life is not too far from it, as this small hidden gem called Peggys Cove proved. An idyllic fishing community of no more than 100 folks, Peggys Cove has maintained its old charm and grace, and yet managed to tell its tale to the world. It is one of Canada's most frequented tourist spots. Past the softly lashing waves of the Atlantic against granite shores, the team arrived at this peaceful destination. From the chirping of sunbirds to the slight roar of the ocean's undulations, the site radiated a welcoming feel. And standing by its lonesome, as if still impressing duty to guide many a seafarer and salvage their lives, is the focal point of Peggys Cove, the lighthouse. As if defiant of the many ravages of time, and still standing as a beacon of hope since its first wooden structure of 1868 and the revised current concrete structure of 1914, it has been refurnished and become a point of fascination for artists who try to capture it against the twilight and the variegating look of the ocean. As we went onward, the expedition found themselves facing once again darker reminiscences of Nova Scotia's history. It is the infamous Swiss Air crash memorial, and residents and tourists alike come here to pay their respects.
We're at the memorial site of Flight 111. This was Swiss Air Flight 111 actually on September 2nd, 1998. It took off from Boston on way to Switzerland, and it ran into some trouble. There was a fire on board. They cleared to land in Halifax Airport. Pilot thought that he should dump all the fuel in the Atlantic Ocean, but while he was doing that, he couldn't bear the heat, and the flight dished into the ocean, and 228 men and women and children died. So this is a memorial built to recognize the death of those 229 people, as well as there was a prince of Saudi Arabia from a Bandar family who also died here. They had a city memorial in Halifax, and which also they recognized Islamic prayers, and they did the Surah Fatiha, recitation Surah Fatiha. So this is the significance of this particular spot.
Our trip of homage to the departed continues as the expedition visited a very important site, that of late Sheikh Karam Din Sahib, known to be a pioneer Ahmadi in Canada, particularly Nova Scotia.
We are at the grave of Sheikh Karam Din, who came to Canada after World War, or during the World War. He was in the merchant navy, and his ship was torpedoed, and he landed in Newfoundland. After that, he moved to Nova Scotia as a businessman. He came in 30s, and we believe that he was the first Ahmadi who entered in Canada and established in Nova Scotia and made his home.
The bond of brotherhood that members of our community strive to foster always shines strongly, even when one has gone on the journey into eternity. The Canso Causeway has now been celebrated for 54 years as a gateway into the Cape Breton Island. Recognition of this causeway needs mentioning. Officially opened in 1955, the causeway was constructed painstakingly by approximately over 9 million tons of rock, creating a makeshift bridge that connects Cape Breton to mainland Nova Scotia. With a crest thickness of 40 meters and a comfortable accommodation of two-way traffic, hastening the flow of trade and tourism to and from Cape Breton became easier. The moment you cross the Canso Causeway onto the Cape Breton Island, you'll see and hear what makes this stunning island one of the world's greatest destinations. Cape Breton Island is by itself a natural wonder. Cape Breton has many attractions that have lured visitors to her shores for hundreds of years. Although fairly small and quite removed from most locales in Canada, it has its own piece of illustrated history. One such piece of history is Marconi, a now household name in the field of communications. This museum, among our brief stops, pays homage to Marconi, who revolutionized communication across distances. In 1901, Guglielmo Marconi sent the first west-to-east wireless message across the Atlantic Ocean to England.
Hello, my name is Jordan O'Leary. I've been working at the Marconi National Historic Site now for 3 years. Guglielmo Marconi is his full name. There he is as a young boy. At that time he had a factory in England, and that's his key that he's using. I'll start today by explaining the model of Marconi. This model here was built in 1902, and it was built by the Cape Breton coal miners. It was financed by the Canadian government. They gave him $80,000 to build this site. As you can see, there's 4 wooden towers that are 210 feet high. They are spaced 200 feet apart. Those wires there that you see in the center are made out of copper, and there's 100 on each side. Yeah, this is a picture of the Titanic. As you know, the Titanic was a large ship that sank off the coast of Newfoundland, and unfortunately many people died because of it. The significance that the Titanic holds for this site is Marconi's receiving station in Louisburg copied the SOS from the Titanic. SOS meaning Save Our Souls in Morse code. It was copied. This here is the communication chart. It was copied on April 13th from the receiving station in Louisburg. This is Jim. He's our radio operator. He's been here since 1994. He uses the Morse code key to make contacts all over the world. Morse code was created by Samuel Morse, and it is made up of dots and dashes.
Now, Jim,
Yes, sir.
the thing is you have been here for a long time, and I gather you worked since age 16. Is this system still working?
It is working fine.
But from where you are connected now?
We talk worldwide. The antenna right now is pointing northeast, over across England, France, Germany, Poland, Sweden, Russia. And it's like sitting on top of the world and touching them on each one on the shoulder.
Marconi chose this site due to its geological convenience and height, and the clear pathway of air across the ocean it afforded him. This culminated in the 1907 initiation of the first transatlantic wireless service from Marconi Towers to Ireland. Another place of historical significance in Cape Breton is Glace Bay, It is a silent yet remotely busy town, one that traces its roots to the early 1700s. Its weathered giant smokestacks and tall windmills signaling to a bygone time of industrial prosperity. Made revered in the mid-1800s in the economy of the region by coal mining, the town achieved the status of not only being an economic staple, but was the largest town in all of Canada. Revolution of industry, awareness of alternate methods of energy production, and alternate doorways drew populations away as coal mining declined, pushing the town and its economy towards silent ravages of history. This location of New Aberdeen, home to coal mining houses, has visual memories of the old days. The coal deposits can still be seen along the shoreline's heights. Graced by a temperate climate, consistently touching the Atlantic, its scores of old half-houses sitting next to modern ones, and adorned by rocky cliffs and heavy forestry, Glace Bay is a town that has carried its contrast for a long, long time. Located conveniently in a central area, the Miners Museum keeps intact historical memories of this once coal-rich community. It seems only an age ago, when in the simpler yet very aspiring times of the mid-1800s, men used to toil with one of nature's most useful resources for as little as $1 a day, a sum that allowed a fair sustenance in those days. The museum looks back at the work, various mining companies, and the mining industry as a whole, from its modest beginnings to its storied rise to prominence, and the fall in the wake of a new business and technological age. The Cape Breton Miners Museum celebrates the region's long and rich history of coal mining. Here you can learn about the geology of the Cape Breton coalfield, the techniques of coal mining from the earliest days, and see the large display of new and old mining equipment. Listen to the stories of the miners, their families, and the companies and the unions.
We are in the Glace Bay Town Hall, which was a very good functioning town hall, because once upon a time Glace Bay was one of the biggest town in whole of Canada. Ultimately the things changed and this town became redundant because the council converted into a county. LK, wife of Dr. Ali Ibrahim, took upon her to save this building. I pass on to LK. LK, you explain what you did.
Thank you, Dr. Khalifa. This old town hall was built 1902, finished 1903. It served as a town hall for just over 80 years. And all the offices were here, the police station, the fire department, the jail, the jailer, the courtroom, the mayor was upstairs, the councillors, and you paid your bills here. All the functions were here, one-stop shopping in those days before the term was even invented. Now, then this building became dilapidated. The roofs were falling and so on, and the offices moved elsewhere, and it stood vacant for a long time. Eventually it was slated for demolition, and a small group of us got together just in the nick of time. Before they tore it down, in the nick of time, we got together and saved this building. It was 10 years ago, in 1999, that we started this project.
The Glace Bay Heritage Museum celebrates a century of change, chronicling the everyday lives of its townsfolk. Anchored by dramatic displays dedicated to the town's founding industries, coal mining and fishing, the museum is a testament to the struggles and triumphs of its people. In the old town hall, where Glace Bay's past was forged, its story is being preserved so that the future generations may understand and appreciate the rich history they share with those who walk these halls before them. From its growing collection of artifacts and photographs, and with assistance of the Glace Bay Historical Society, the museum creates temporary theme-based exhibits that deliver slices of Glace Bay's history.
Assalamu alaikum. Now we are at the Ahmadiyya Mosque. We are very happy to have this mosque because this is the only Ahmadiyya Mosque on east of Montreal. The name is proposed and given by Hazur, Baitul Hafiz Mosque, and we are about 10 families in Sydney, which is a city which is next to the Halifax. This mosque is situated on the Grand Trunk Road, which is the main road connecting Glace Bay and Sydney. This location of this mosque is very important because most of the members, Ahmadis, are doctors and working people. So they can come to the Jummah prayer within 10 minutes. The airport is about 5 minutes from here, and the main shopping centers of Sydney are also about 5 minutes.
Although styled in simplicity, it performs its function well. For one, the mosque is soundproof from the interior. It has a common gathering or event area where jalsas and meetings can be held. It also has a children's playroom. This mosque has a library and a guest room which can also be used for missionary residents. Cabot Trail is the consistent mark of Canadian heritage across its many phases of history to recognize those who discovered its benchmark potential. The Cabot Trail was named after the explorer John Cabot, whose many explorations made this dedication to him, though not particularly for the discovery of the trail. Its stretch yields scenic beauty, with breathtaking views of the open Atlantic in various destinations along its route, as it passes through the Cape Breton Highlands. The expedition went along the trail only up to a distance of 50 kilometers, before stopping at a popular tourist spot, Ingonish Beach. A part of 5 communities of the main rural community of Ingonish, Ingonish Beach is one of its most appealing features. Another main attraction in this area is Celtic Lodge. It has served guests since 1940. With splendid restaurants and exotic and traditional food, it also offers spa and comfortable lodging services, made all the better with the temperate feel and the visual treat of the ocean. Visitors have alternate choices of visiting one of the many well-kept golf courses or beautiful parks as they proceed along the trail. It may not be a place where modernization's many exploits have been visited, but it certainly brings one's senses back to the appeal of the most basic beauties and bounties of nature. The quiet demeanor of the community only helps to make that a memorable experience. This concludes our tour of Nova Scotia. We hope you've enjoyed this installment of the Attractions of Canada series.